If you think you've heard every prison story, think again. What happened on that highway to Angola Prison still haunts every officer who survived it. And before we dive in, don't forget, subscribe if you dare, like if you can handle the truth, and comment only if you're ready to enter the darkest chapter of America's penal system. Now, let's begin. The call came in at 4:17 a.m., cutting through the quiet haze of a Louisiana dawn. A prison transport bus was missing. Not late, not delayed, missing. The vehicle had vanished somewhere between New Orleans and the rural isolation of West Louisiana Parish. The radio dispatcher's voice crackled with unease as she repeated the last known coordinates. Highway 61, near the tree line, bus number 407. Officers unresponsive. Within minutes, the Louisiana State Police activated an emergency response. Helicopters were scrambled, roadblocks went up, and officers from 3 departments converged on a lonely stretch of highway known for fog, deep ditches, and miles of silence. This route was infamous. It was the same one used to bring inmates into Angola Prison, the largest maximum security facility in the United States. A place built on a former slave plantation, surrounded by swamps and fields, where razor wires shimmered under punishing southern heat. A place where inmates often said they felt forgotten by the world. No one liked working the Angola transfer route. Too many things could go wrong. But nothing had ever gone this wrong. At 5:06 a.m., Trooper Elijah Carter was the first to spot the bus. It sat lopsided on the shoulder, engine off, headlights still glowing against the early morning gloom. The front windshield was cracked, as if something had slammed into it from the inside. The bus door was open, and the silence around it felt thick and unnatural. Carter approached slowly, hand on his holster. He called out, "State Police, identify yourselves." No answer, only the distant sound of crickets and the low hum of power lines overhead. When he stepped inside, everything changed. The first thing he saw was blood smeared across the metal floor, not in one place but in streaks, as if bodies had been dragged. Handcuffs lay broken, twisted out of shape. The chain loops were snapped cleanly, something that should have been impossible without tools. The seats were torn, some collapsed sideways, and at the back, just beneath the shattered emergency exit window, lay a single boot, still warm. Carter backed out immediately, radio trembling in his hand. He called it in as a possible coordinated attack. But deep down, he knew this wasn't just an attack. This was something planned, a violent struggle that had lasted long enough to tear the inside of a reinforced prison bus apart. Minutes later, more officers arrived. They fanned out into the surrounding woods in tight formation, rifles raised. The fog clung low to the ground, swallowing the beam of their flashlights. A blood trail led into the trees. Not a small trail, a long one, smeared and heavy, as if someone had tried to flee while wounded. At 5:32 a.m., a deputy shouted, "I've got someone." The officers converged, expecting an inmate, but it wasn't. It was Officer Grant, one of the 2 guards assigned to the transfer. He lay slumped against a fallen log, wrists still cuffed behind him. His uniform was torn, and his face was streaked with dirt and blood. He was breathing, barely. His eyes opened when Carter knelt beside him. "Grant, talk to me," Carter urged. "What happened on that bus?" Grant's lips trembled before he forced out a whisper. It wasn't an escape. They weren't trying to run. Then what were they doing? Grant swallowed hard, breath rattling. They were after one inmate. One, Blue Coleman. It was a hit from inside the prison. They didn't want freedom. They wanted him dead. The forest fell silent as those words settled in. A hit ordered from inside Angola, on a transport that wasn't supposed to be public knowledge? This meant someone inside the prison system had leaked the route, the timing, everything. Someone wanted Darius Blue Coleman erased before he ever reached the gates of Angola, and they were willing to weaponize the entire inmate transfer to make it happen. Carter asked, "Where's Coleman? Did they kill him?" Grant shook his head weakly. "No, he fought back. Someone helped him. I don't know who." He coughed, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "There was a man, Marcus Hale. He wasn't part of the attack, but he wasn't innocent either. There was something off about him, like he knew more than he said. He moved differently, watched everything." Carter felt a cold ripple of dread. Marcus Hale, a quiet fraudster rumored to have millions hidden away, had always been described as calculating, manipulative, dangerous in ways that didn't require violence. If he had used the chaos to disappear, they were facing not one crisis, but two. Grant, Carter said, how many inmates are unaccounted for? Grant closed his eyes. 10, maybe 11. But Carter, he opened them again, fear flickering. You have to find Coleman first. Because if those men find him, they'll finish what they started. A shout echoed from deeper in the woods. Another officer had found something. Carter sprinted toward the sound, branches whipping against his arms. He expected a body. A clue. Something. What he found was worse. There, lying against a tree stump, was a handcuff key. Not one that belonged to the guards. A small, handcrafted key made from sharpened metal, wrapped with tape for grip. A key that could have only come from the inside, meaning the attack was premeditated, planned down to the smallest detail. Carter stared at it, heart pounding. If the inmates could smuggle this aboard the bus, they could smuggle anything. As he held up the key, sunlight finally broke through the trees. And at that moment, he realized something chilling. This wasn't a random assault. This wasn't a desperate escape. This was a coordinated mission. A mission that was still unfolding. And somewhere in those woods, someone was hunting Darius Blue Coleman, while someone else was silently vanishing into the fog. What Carter discovered next would change the entire investigation, because just 50 yards deeper into the forest lay something no one expected to find on a prison transport case. Something that blew the entire operation open. The object lay half buried in the date, glinting faintly as the morning light pushed through the trees. Trooper Carter approached cautiously, brushing away leaves of the back of his glove. At first, it looked like a radio. But when he lifted it, a chill ran down his spine. It wasn't a radio. It was a body camera. A prison-issued body cam, the same model worn by Officer Riley, the senior guard on the transport bus. But the strap was torn clean off, as if ripped away in a violent struggle. Carter called out, "I found something. Get evidence techs here now." Officers rushed over, forming a perimeter. Carter turned the device over in his hand. The casing was cracked, but intact enough to hold data. If this camera still worked, the entire attack might be recorded. But something felt wrong, very wrong. Lieutenant Shaw, a seasoned investigator known for her blunt instincts, stepped beside Carter. "Where's Riley?" she asked quietly. Carter shook his head. "Not here. Not in the woods. Not on the bus." Shaw inhaled sharply. Either he escaped the attack, or someone took him. As forensic techs bagged the camera, Carter scanned the forest again. The blood trail, the ripped clothing fibers snagged on branches, the boot inside the bus, everything pointed to chaos. But the scattered clues weren't chaotic at all. They formed a pattern, a path, a direction. Whoever orchestrated the ambush had pushed the route deeper into the woods, forcing the inmates and officers of the bus and into unfamiliar terrain. They weren't fleeing randomly. They were hunting. Shaw radioed command. "We need K-9 units and drones. Now, assume multiple suspects and one missing officer." Then she turned to Carter. "Let's move." They followed the blood trail deeper, step by cautious step. The forest shifted from thin brush to tall pines that blocked out the sun. Every sound felt amplified. The snap of twigs, the buzz of insects, the distant murmur of running water. Then Carter stopped. There, pressed against the bark of a tree, was a single bloody handprint. Fresh. Shaw knelt beside it. "Looks like Riley's size." Carter scanned the area. If it's moving, he's hurt. But before they could track the direction of the prints, a call came through the radio, urgent and breathless. "Unit Bravo to command. We've located the bus registration pouch. It's empty. All inmate files are gone." Carter froze. Shaw's jaw tightened. Someone took the paperwork. They stole their own identities off the records. That meant no quick identification. No straightforward manhunt. This wasn't chaos. This was strategy. Shaw looked at Carter. This was never about killing Blue Coleman on the bus. They wanted the woods. They wanted the time. And they wanted us blind. Carter felt his stomach twist. If they were going to kill Coleman, They could have done it inside the bus. But they didn't. They dragged him into the forest instead. Why? Before he could answer, a loud crack echoed behind them. A gunshot. Officers dove for cover. Carter and Shaw sprinted toward the sound, branches slicing their arms. They burst into a clearing where 2 state troopers crouched behind a fallen log. What happened? Shaw demanded. One trooper pointed shakily ahead. Movement in the trees. Something big. We fired a warning shot. No response. Carter raised his binoculars and scanned the ridge. For a moment, he saw nothing but shadows, and then a figure, slumped, limp, hanging halfway over a fallen tree trunk. Is that? Shaw whispered. It's someone, Carter said. Weapons down. Move forward. They advanced slowly, weapons drawn but angled low in case it was one of their own. The closer they came, the clearer the shape became. An orange jumpsuit, bare feet cut by branches, wrists raw from broken restraints. But when Carter rolled the figure over, his breath caught. It wasn't Blue Coleman. It wasn't Marcus Hale. It wasn't any of the violent inmates at all. It was Derek Moss, a low-level nonviolent offender, a quiet inmate who had kept to himself, serving time for forgery. And he was gone. No pulse. No movement. No signs of life. Shaw knelt beside the body. Strangled, she said. 20 seconds, maybe less. Clean. Efficient. Carter's voice turned hollow. Why kill Moss? He wasn't part of any gang. He wasn't a threat. Shaw didn't answer, because the question had no simple answer. Unless the inmates weren't killing randomly. Unless Moss had seen something, or knew something, that made him a liability. As they examined his pockets, Carter noticed something tucked beneath Moss's shirt collar. Something small and folded. Paper. He pulled it free. A torn piece of a map of the Angola region. Hand-marked circles. Different routes leading toward the river. Multiple crossing points. Escape paths. Shaw stared at it. This is detailed. Too detailed. They planned this for months. Carter felt his pulse spike. The attack wasn't about killing Coleman. Shaw looked at him sharply. Say it. Carter inhaled slowly. This was about getting Marcus Hale out. Coleman was a distraction. The fights, the chaos, the blood. It kept the officers busy while Hale disappeared. Shaw's face turned grim. Hale orchestrated the entire transfer ambush, and he used the others to do it. Carter stared out over the forest, suddenly aware how quiet everything had become. Somewhere out here, hidden among the trees and fog, Marcus Hale, a man smart enough to vanish millions, was now leading a group of desperate inmates through a labyrinth of escape routes designed long before this day began. And they weren't running blindly. They were following a plan. But before Carter could process the next step, another radio call crackled through. Command to ground teams. We found Officer Riley. A pause. He's alive, but you're not going to believe where he is. When the radio crackled with the news, Carter and Shaw exchanged a look that needed no words. Officer Riley being alive was a miracle, but the dispatcher's tone carried something else, disbelief. The troopers moved fast through the thick brush, guided by the beacon ping transmitted from Riley's vest. The forest thinned into a marshy stretch of land where cypress roots twisted above the mud like skeletal fingers reaching for sunlight. 2 deputies stood at the water's edge, faces pale, eyes fixed on a cluster of reeds. Carter approached first. What did you find? One deputy pointed silently. There, lying half submerged in the shallow marsh, was Officer Riley, bound at the wrist but breathing. Someone had propped him upright against a fallen log, placing his torso just high enough to avoid drowning. His vest was gone, but the locator beacon had been tucked into the pocket of his torn uniform as if someone wanted him found. Shaw knelt, checking his pulse. He's barely conscious, but he's stable. Riley's eyes fluttered open. His voice was rough, cracked. You came. We're here, Carter said. Riley, tell us who did this. Where are the others? Where's Coleman? Riley blinked hard, trying to focus. Hale used the chaos. He slipped into the woods with the ones loyal to him. I tried to stop him. Didn't make it far. Carter leaned closer. What happened to Coleman? Riley coughed, his breath fogging in the cool air. They didn't kill him. They dragged him farther north. Hale said Coleman knew something he needed. Shaw frowned. Needed what? Riley swallowed painfully. Coleman wasn't just a random inmate. He worked laundry duty at Angola for years. He overheard things. Conversations. Deals. Secrets. Something about a corrections officer moving contraband. Money. Phones. Favors. Coleman had proof. Evidence. Carter stiffened. Are you saying someone inside Angola was involved in this ambush? Riley nodded weakly. More than one. Hale had help. Someone leaked the transfer schedule. Someone gave him the map. Someone told him exactly which officer to target. Me. Shaw's face tightened. Why you? Riley's eyes dropped. Shame flickered there. Because I saw something I wasn't supposed to. A meeting. Hale and a guard, exchanging something small. A flash drive. I reported it to my supervisor. 2 days later, I was suddenly assigned to the Angola transport. Carter's blood ran cold. This wasn't an accident. Riley had been placed on that transfer to make him disappear. Coleman, too. And Hale had orchestrated an entire inmate riot just to clear a path through the forest. Shaw stood. We need to move. Find Coleman before Hale does. Riley, can you walk? I can manage, he whispered. But before the team could organize extraction, a shout came from the tree line. Lieutenant, we've got movement. Carter's hand dropped to his weapon as officers shifted into formation. The woods rustled, not violently, but cautiously, almost calculated. A figure emerged, limping, mud-covered, breathing hard. Trooper Cole rushed forward, shouting, "Hands up!" The figure complied slowly. When Carter stepped closer, he recognized a man instantly. Darius Blue Coleman. The inmate they believed was being hunted was now stumbling toward them alive and terrified. "Don't shoot!" Coleman gasped, hands trembling. "I'm not here to fight." Shaw stepped forward. "Coleman, what happened? Where's Hale?" Coleman swallowed hard, eyes darting behind him as if expecting someone to appear. "He's close. Too close. He thinks I have something of his." "What does he think you have?" Coleman's voice dropped to a whisper. "A flash drive, the one he passed to the guard. He believes I stole it when the fighting started. But I swear, I don't have it. I don't know where it went." Carter's mind raced. If Hale believed Coleman had the drive, he wouldn't stop. And if the drive contained evidence of corruption inside Angola, then this wasn't just a prison break. It was a cover-up. Before they could question Coleman further, a sharp rustling came from the ridge. Officers immediately drew aim. Carter scanned the tree line, heart pounding. Then a voice rang out, cold, calm, confident. "Well," it said, "looks like I'm too late for introductions." Marcus Hale stepped into view. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't dirty or injured like the others. He looked composed, even purposeful, his orange jumpsuit torn just enough to suggest effort, but his eyes sharp and calculating. "Lower your weapons," Shaw ordered. "Hale, don't move." Hale raised his hand slowly. "Relax. If I wanted to kill Coleman, I would have done it hours ago." Carter stepped forward carefully. "Then what do you want?" Hale smiled thinly. "I want what's mine. That flash drive contains evidence that could destroy powerful people who promised me protection. Instead, they set me up, and now I'm the one being hunted." Carter kept his voice steady. "If you didn't pass the drive, where is it?" "Hale." "That," Hale said, eyes flicking between Coleman and the officers, "is the only question that matters." Before anyone could respond, a distant sound cut through the forest, helicopter blades. "Back up." But Hale didn't panic. He lifted his chin slightly, eyes narrowing. "Seems our time is up," he murmured. Then he did something no one expected. He dropped to his knees, hands raised, surrendering. But Carter felt the wrongness instantly. Hale wasn't surrendering because he was beaten. He was surrendering because he'd already won something they hadn't discovered yet. As troopers moved in to cuff him, Hale spoke softly to Carter. "You're searching for the wrong thing. he said. "The drive wasn't meant to be found in the woods." Carter frowned. "Then where is it?" Hale's smile widened, slow, chilling. "It's still on the bus." 2 hours later, after securing the inmates and transporting the wounded, Carter and Shaw returned to the abandoned bus. Crime scene techs worked around it, documenting every inch. But inside, underneath the driver's seat, wedged deep into the metal framing, they found it. A small flash drive, unmarked, untouched, hidden before the ambush even began. Shaw picked it up carefully. "If this proves corruption in Angola..." Carter finished the sentence quietly. "Then the deadliest inmate transfer in America wasn't a breakout. It was a message." Hale was taken into custody. Coleman placed under protective status. Riley transported to a hospital. But the truth on that flash drive, the names, the deals, the secrets, would shake the Louisiana prison system for years. And although the case closed, one detail still lingered in Carter's mind. When Hale was led away, he whispered one last thing. "You may have the drive, but you still don't know who ordered the hit." Carter didn't sleep that night, because deep down, he knew Hale was right. This story wasn't over. Not even close. And if you thought this case was intense, you're not ready for what comes next. Hit subscribe, and I'll tell you the next chapter when you're brave enough to hear it.